Hello and welcome everyone. I am really excited to be here. It's been amazing looking at all the projects that you have been building and submitting in your check-ins on the dashboard. And I'm very excited today to kick off this session with Ruth from Outlier Ventures. I'll spend some time talking about our builders programs briefly, and then I'll hand it over to Ruth. So a lot of you here are experimenting with a lot of ideas, learning new technologies, and building projects to solve problems you care about. Some of you are also here to build the next startup that will, take up most of your time and that you will be really excited about and will continue putting in effort to building it out. In today's session, we are talking to this specific subset of people who would like to continue working on their project and take it to the next step. And accelerator programs are a really great way to do that. They're fixed term cohort based programs, and they can give you that additional boost that you would need after building, an early idea at the hackathon. They are great places to get education on different technologies that you might want to incorporate in your project, get mentorship from experts and people with a lot of experience in the field, that whichever field your project may fall into, get access to resources, be it technical in nature or be it related to helping, actually turn an idea into a business and do all the other things that go into making building a startup, and also getting funding and financing options. Who are these right for, and what can teams expect? They are intense and they are immersive. Ruth will tell you more about it, and there's plenty of opportunities to learn, to interact with other startups in your cohort, interact with mentors, and there's a lot of live sync calls where people join from all over the world. They are for projects that have a good early product idea, but they are not necessarily revenue generating yet, and are pre-revenue. And the highlight of any accelerator program is a demo day, which happens at the very end of the program, where investors get to see the refined idea that you have. Now, you would have a good idea by the end of the hackathon, and accelerator programs can really help you get traction for this idea, be it figuring out revenue generating clients, or finding your first users, or figuring out what your product roadmap should be. There's like 100 different questions that you may have to answer, and accelerator programs are perfect to pick people's brains in order to answer these questions for yourself. A couple of really great teams that you see on the slide, Phil Swan and Glitter, have come out of first hackathons and then gone to accelerators with Outlier Ventures. And we have been very glad to see them progress and mature and take shape, and their products take better shape. On the right, you see a screenshot from a really great talk from Juan, where he talks of this simple framework on how to start a startup. You go from being a solo developer with an idea, or maybe just a couple of teams with a curiosity about some technology, and then from there you go into making into a hackathon project, probably looking for grants, then possibly going to an accelerator. And this is the stage that the Builders program at Protocol Labs focuses on. And there are opportunities at every single stage through this journey that you take, from merely being somebody with an idea to an actual company that may potentially raise millions of dollars. And I'll briefly now talk about the Build Us program in my next slide. So like I said, for every stage that you may find yourself at, we have education, developer education related resources that are available on multiple different websites, followed by hackathons. If you've been at hackathons, you know there's like IPFS, Filecoin, now FVM, and a ton of other tech products have always been there ever since like Web3 hackathons have existed. This is followed by a grants program where ideas that need that little extra boost before they can figure out what they would like to do can apply and get that support and mentorship. And this is followed by accelerators, where we partner with many different platforms. And OV is one of our excellent partners, which is then followed by teams sort of getting on their own feet and then raising investment from multiple different funds. So that's a very, very brief overview of the Build Us program at Protocol Labs. And with this, I will hand over to Ruth, who will tell you more about how to go from a hackathon project that you currently have to an actual VC deal.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Nikki. I think that's really good framing as well to go forwards on. So hi everyone, very happy to be here today speaking with you all. So yes, I'm Ruth, the manager of the IPFS Open Metaverse Basecamp at Outlier Ventures. Yeah, really interested and super excited to see all the builders and the creations that come out of HackFS this time. So as Nikki mentioned, we have had a number of our portfolio companies come from where you are sitting today. So if you're considering taking your idea to the next level, interested in joining an accelerator or looking to get VC ready, I hope you enjoy the session. So a bit of background on Outlier Ventures. So we were established in 2014 originally as one of the first institutional investors globally dedicated to crypto and digital assets. And by now, we're one of the most active investors in the Web3 space. So we have a portfolio of around about 250 companies, and we work with a number of leading protocols and providers like Filecoin, IPFS, Polygon, Polkadot, Aptos, New Order, as well as brands like Farfetch and Walmart. So a really large community, both from a mentor perspective, a founder perspective, and so on. So there's lots of opportunities for cross collaboration within the OV portfolio as well. So at OV, we've condensed 9 years of learning into a virtual 3-month accelerator. We're now running our 5th cohort in collaboration with Protocol Labs, and this right now really has a core focus on both IPFS and FVM builders. Historically, these base camps have focused on key areas such as the financialization of the open data economy, the open metaverse, both at the infrastructure and persistence. We really saw IPFS as a backbone of the open metaverse, as well as Cloud 2.0, so decentralized storage and compute. So over the 3-month accelerator, we provide tailored Web3 expertise, support, and mentorship across product and tech strategy, go-to-market strategy, token design, mechanics, governance, community and marketing, legal, fundraising, NFT strategy, as well as a 100K stipend as well to take you to that next level. So we're always looking for the latest builders to support and invest in within the ecosystem. And we bring this to life through a focus on your process, partners, and most importantly, your people. So in terms of process, this is all around creating focus, getting stuck in on the items that are most likely to move the needle as part of an execution kind of framework. Partners, so OV's been around since 2014, so has a really extensive network in this space, and it's great, with Protocol Labs, really a strong partnership there. And then people, so we have a cross-disciplinary team that has the deep expertise across those various areas I mentioned, product, tech, legal, community, so all sorts there. And then we also deploy resources into your startup. So over the program, you have a dedicated program associate, and they can kind of act as a bit of an extension of your team during the program as well. And then along with that is also mentors. So our mentors come from across the Web3 ecosystem. So again, we've got partners like protocol labs, exchanges, startups, investors, and the wider Web3 community. And I'd say these mentors, they broadly fit within these different areas. So friendly investors, sector experts, domain experts, connectors, and then founders who have been in your shoes where you are today. So what does a typical program structure look like to bring it to life a bit? So it's normally divided into three main parts. At the beginning, we have this intense feedback time. So it's what we call mental madness. And really the objective is to look at what you are building now and where you're at, and then give you lots of feedback from a variety of sources, and then define your goals. Second is really getting into knowledge building and best practices of building in this space and growing. And then third is around execution and fundraising. So really supporting you in executing your vision, building your product, and raising funding as well at the end. And we support teams at all stages. So early stage all the way to Series A. And we have two main programs for this. So one is the Basecamp, and it's really focused on supporting teams, maybe where you are post hackathon, and really take it to that next level. And then we have the Ascent program, and that's like the graduate program for early stage startups. And really look at the later stage, so support on scaling, token design, and then token launch as well. So with all of that, if you're looking to take your idea from a hackathon project to a VC deal, it's really good to put yourself in the shoes of an investor and understand what they're looking for as well. And as one of the most active investors in the space, we see a lot of different teams here too. And there's a range of criteria that investors will look at. Are you solving a core problem or solving for an unmet need? What's your solution and business model? Is the market big enough to be attractive to a VC? How does the solution stand up against competitors, and is there a competitive moat? However, for the purpose of this session and for early stage projects, I thought there's 4 key founder success factors that both OV and VCs tend to look for, and also credit to Blake from the OV team for these two. So team, market interaction, domain expertise, and then also potential, which is really key here. So while you may be at the very beginning of this journey, I think being aware of these things at this point can then help you to start to position your hackathon project and really get ready to take it to the next level. So firstly, team. I think team is super important, because at the early stages, after a hackathon, you might be pre-MVP or only just have an MVP, pre-revenue. So you're still quite far away from what I like to call that minimum lovable product as well. So you might not have as many tangible traction points that you can point to for an investor. So investors are really investing into you as founders. So it's important to be aware of these 3 things as well. Firstly, the vision and communication. So do you have a vision that acts as a call to arms for others in the industry? So is there a core problem or burning platform that you're solving for? Does the vision challenge the status quo and yet align with trends or kind of tailwinds within the market? And then are you able to communicate what it is, what are the benefits to a specific stakeholder group? And then will you be able to rally people to get behind it? And then the long-term tech capability and incentives. So do you have in-house resources to build the vision? Do the founders have the incentives to work on the project long-term as well? And then third is around adaptability and coachability. I think this is an area that is sometimes overlooked, but it can really make or break the teams that we see. So when curveballs come your way, are you able to roll quickly with the punches? Can you and the team follow a vision while also being flexible on the execution during your path to finding product market fit? And then particularly for newly formed teams, can you work under stress and still be cohesive? So there's lots of aspects that we look for, when looking at the founders, and then start to work with on the teams as well. So then secondly is around market and traction. So for the market dynamics, have you identified an area that is underserved or open to disruption, and your project really starts to kind of solve that? Do you have a narrative as to why existing customers will switch or new customers will choose your solution? And has the business model started to be validated in certain ways? You can go big or you can go niche. So what's your strategy to capture the market? So I think you can start to think through those a little bit post the hackathon. And then the scalability potential. So does this project and kind of how can you shape that narrative to really be able to generate 10x or VC level returns in the market? And then is the timing right? So I think in startups, timing is also everything. The company that can achieve scale at the critical mass point will win. I think there's lots of examples in the past of this. So are the broader macro trends really indicating that the timing is right? And then the next category is around domain expertise. And again, for early stage projects, I feel like this is really key, like investing into the founders. So do you know things that the others don't? Maybe from your background or your experience, you've got some really, really core edges and insights. And so all of this kind of contributes to creating a bit of that unfair advantage because you just naturally have more of that domain expertise. It could also be around your network. So from a hiring perspective, are you able to hire rapidly and grow the team from where it is? Do you have connections with developers or a CTO as well? And then are you a voracious learner? So this space is moving so fast. 6 months can feel like three years sometimes in terms of the amount of change and adaptability that's required. So as a founder growing your business, you end up wearing multiple hats. So always being able to learn and so on. It's both challenging, but then super rewarding too. And then lastly is potential. So VCs, at this stage as well, are really looking for high potential and kind of 10x returns. So it's not just where you are today, but where we think you can be in the future. So at OV, we are literally looking for the outliers as well. So I think that's a key thing to think about when you're speaking to someone like OV or investors in the space. So what is the adoption potential? How will this grow within the chosen area? Is there anything that might prevent project adoption? And why would this project be adopted over others? I think these are some of the questions you can start to think through. And then what are the edges and the moats? So just like a moat, protecting a castle, how are you thinking creatively about building a moat as well? And is the project developed and so on, and have you got a first mover advantage? And then the last point is more of that progression to Web3. So if it's more of an existing Web2 idea, or I think really thinking about what's the right way to establish the Web3 angle, or if it's moving into that space. So I always think it's good to question: is the project suitable for a token? Is there actually a need for this, or trying to just fit it in? So I think really kind of looking at from the first lens is really key. So I think that's a quick overview of what investors might look for, and I think in the next stage can really help you start to frame the narrative and think about next steps. So if I were to summarize a few key things, I would say remember, who is your team? VCs invest heavily in you as founders. What's your solution and market? And then how can you really look at the potential of what you're building, and then be able to shape that narrative as well. If you would like to connect and talk about taking your project to the next level, feel free to reach out to me directly, or you can check out our website as well for upcoming base camps. But once again, really looking forward to seeing what you've all created. And thank you.
Hi, so there's a question in chat. Thanks for the talk, Ruth. I think we can take the question. The question is, what is a decent team size to apply with? Sometimes at early stage, this could be a max of 3 to 5 people. You're on mute.
Classic. No, it's a good question though. I mean, in the past, we've invested in solo founders as well. I think the most important thing is to make sure that you have at least like the CTO. So sometimes if it's a solo founder, it's been someone who has a CEO and a CTO. I think the ideal is around 2, because then you're really positioned to also be able to scale, quick. If it's just a single person, it's really hard to do it all. So that's what I'd say is, if you can have, both the CEO and the CTO role, I would say that's the ideal.
Cool.
Any other questions?
I think that was the only one. I see a few more people in chat. We can hang in for another minute or so to see if there's any other questions. And then I think that's it.
Sounds good.
There's one question I have. Normally, what's the time duration you see that from a typical team being able to go from, like a hackathon ready project to being VC funded or being accepted in an accelerator cohort?
Yeah, I feel like, so a lot does depend on from that hackathon, like really at the beginning of the builder's funnel. I think a lot depends on how quickly can they progress the idea before, from like a technical perspective. So how much can they build their MVP and really be able to show investors? Because I think you want to make sure that your product also matches your investing and kind of fundraising milestones. I think a lot does also depend on the market timing. So right now versus other times, I think we see teams getting, sometimes needing to have more solid, product roadmap deliverables before kind of raising that round. So I think like investors do look at different things depending on the market. So yeah, it can vary a little bit depending on the team, depending on the product stage, and then also the market timings.
Got it. We have one more question in the chat. Where can we ask for feedback about projects, and how can we apply better to the accelerator if possible?
Yeah, for the second question, so where can you apply? If I can put it in the chat, we have on our website, outlierventures.io, we have a number of accelerated programs, and we should have maybe a new IPFS or Filecoin Basecamp opening soon. So I'd say keep an eye out for that. I don't think I can pop it in the chat, but yeah, it's outlierventures.io.
You can Slack it to me and we can pop it in the Discord.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and where can we ask for feedback? That's the part of the question.
And was that feedback on your project straight after a hackathon?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, again, feel free to reach out to myself directly. I'm happy to provide some feedback. And I would say get feedback from a range of sources, whether it's speaking to someone at an accelerator, from some kind of friendly mentors or from protocol labs. I think the more feedback you can get, the better. And then also, talk to your customers. I think getting feedback from your customers, whoever that is, the sooner you just get out there and speak to them, the better. Because at the end of the day, that's really what makes the difference.
Cool. We have 2 more questions. Can you go on for another couple of minutes?
Yes.
Okay, cool. How do we evaluate whether we have created a presentable MVP and it is time to move forward?
Yeah, I would also say it's a presentable MVP. Is that so? There's different lenses of that. Is that presentable to a customer or presentable to an investor? I think maybe if I go from the customer perspective, I think again, if you are at that product testing phase, I think like the sooner you actually you think about like the full MVP kind of creating like a bicycle. Just speaking to customers as soon as possible. I would really stress that. And then I think that starts to gauge how ready are you to start to speak to someone like an accelerator, because you can gather more of these feedback points and see, are you on the mark? Do you feel like you have honed in on being onto something, whether that's a problem to solve or an unmet need, and then you can start to progress it. And then I think also then investors and accelerators, that kind of follow-ons from that, because once you've got the idea and you feel like you're on the mark and you're starting to test that kind of product market fit, then it's a lot easier to kind of go up from there.
Okay, cool. And the last question is, what could reduce a project's chance of getting into an accelerator despite having a good product and team?
So I would say, yeah, product, team, so maybe market. So is there something that's happening in the market? Maybe it could feel like it's quite early in the market, or it's quite late. Is there already a lot of competition, and it's a struggle to be able to both communicate how your project might have really, really good tech, but is it likely to be able to compete with what is there already and actually gain more market share? So I would say, yeah, on top of that, markets, competition, and last point would just be thinking about also the business model. So is there like a level of commercial viability as well to be attractive from a VC perspective?
Yeah, maybe I would add one more thing to it, is being able to communicate well, even if you have like a good product and a good team, and then you have most of or the other factors that you talked about. If your pitch is not great, then it's a bit of a soupy place to be in.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. And those things I think are easier to change. So if you've actually got really good team, really good product, I think it's in a good position. And then those other things you can refine easier.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, maybe we take one last question. They just keep coming. Okay, how can one convince angel investors and keep the project going even after rejection?
Yeah, rejection's hard. I think being a founder isn't an easy journey. You're faced with rejection just constantly. So I mean, you might have 100 conversations with VCs, and I think if you even bake that into the expectation that even like the top projects, the top companies, the multi-billion-dollar companies now, they still got rejected early on, and they just needed some of those early believers to back them to see the potential in the founders and in the idea. So I would say, yeah, it's really hard, and I think a lot of respect for founders, for putting yourself out there. And I think then it connects with that vision. If you really believe in what you are building, and you start to test it out, and then you can figure out the right narrative, and then get some data points to prove that you're also onto something with customers. And then, there's an element of just also your resilience that is there, and being willing to pivot. If you find that you're not going down the right path, and you get some data to look at another way, I think being able to be adaptable and change from there is also good.
Cool. I think that's it. And thank you for the wonderful talk, Ruth, and answering all the questions.
Awesome. No worries. Great to be here.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.